Hi, I'm Lara Bennett, and you're listening to Highway Butterfly, The Stories of Neal Casal. Neal was a gifted singer, songwriter, musician, and friend to many. He released 14 albums as a solo artist and collaborated on countless projects with other musicians. After his passing in 2019, his friends and family created the Neal Casal Music Foundation to provide instruments and music lessons to students in New York and New Jersey, and to support organizations that offer musicians mental health care. One of the featured projects of the newly formed foundation is the tribute album, Highway Butterfly, The Songs of Neal Casal, a sprawling 41-song collection bringing together a galaxy of rock and roots luminaries. We've asked the contributing musicians to share their memories of Neal and their stories of making the record. Highway Butterfly, The Songs of Neal Casal is out on November 12th. Pre-order the album and learn more about the Neal Casal Music Foundation at nealcasalmusicfoundation.org. Hi, Erin. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for joining.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So you recorded Traveling After Dark for Highway Butterfly, The Songs of Neal Casal, and you're currently on the road right now, apparently, which viewers can see. You're actually in the van.
Yes.
How does it feel to be back at it?
It feels amazing in so many ways. I mean, it's been an interesting experience, obviously with the Delta variant and stuff like that. But overall, it's a huge relief, to be able to get back out there and get together with folks again and share music and do it safely.
Right on. Well, as a listener, I'm very excited that concerts are back. So thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you.
So how did you first meet Neal Casal?
I first met Neal Casal in 2000 and I think it was maybe seven. Might have been 2000. It was either 2007 or 2008. My friend Kevin Kinney from Driving and Crying and I used to have a weekly night of music together in New York City where we both lived at that time. And it was called Shaney Ray's Truck Stop. It was an event that Kevin and I sort of emceed, and then our friend Shaney Ray curated it. And she was longtime friends with Neal, and we used to have different musician friends who were on tour coming through New York for their shows or whatever, come down and play a few songs for everybody in our show. And uh, one Monday evening, Neal Casal walked in and walked up on stage and played a few of his songs, and I knew who he was, through his work with, many of the fantastic bands that he worked with. But I had never heard his music before. That was my first time ever hearing Neal's music, and I was so just blown away by the expressiveness of his songs, his how beautiful his voice was, and what an amazing charisma he had as a performer, and it was hugely inspirational to me because at that time I was kind of treading, between these two worlds of trying to figure out how to, be a songwriter, but I was making a living as a guitarist, and so I was kind of like, what do I do, and is it possible to even do both of those things or whatever, so Neal was really inspiring to me in that way because, I knew him as this great guitarist, but then I saw in that moment that he was also like this really inspiring solo artist, and that's a rare thing. So that was my very first experience, both meeting Neal and hearing his own music for the first time in the same night.
That's quite an introduction.
Yes, it sure was.
Very cool. So cut to a couple years later, and you were around for some hardworking Americans recording sessions. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of where we sort of bonded, me and
Mhm.
Neal. I had done some touring in the New York Dolls, playing the Johnny Thunders parts in their music, and Neal was a huge Johnny Thunders fan, and we somehow got onto that topic of conversation, and just that was the thing. Like, Neal just loved music so much, and he loved talking music so much, and he had such an appreciation and therefore a depth of knowledge, for it. And so you could just talk to him about this stuff forever. And so we became buddies at that Hardworking American session, and then started emailing, back and forth about music. It was a lot of Johnny Thunder stuff because we both really loved him. But yeah, he just kind of, and I think a lot of people had that experience with Neal, where he just sort of became this lifelong sort of musical compadre.
Yeah, he definitely had like an encyclopedic knowledge. And
Yeah,
if you tried to introduce someone to him, he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I know their entire history," that sort of
totally.
thing. And then you went on tour with him for a while with Hardworking Americans. Is that right?
Yeah, I actually, when I put out my first record on New West Records, came out in 2016, and that was right around the same time as the Hardworking Americans were kind of like really, getting going and stuff. And so they invited me and my band to open a few shows for them, which we did, and obviously absolutely loved. We were all huge fans of the various bands that that band was made up of. But it was kind of cool, Neal, like, having had seen Neal's work in a few different groups in that time. Like, by the time I was touring with Hardworking Americans, it was kind of cool to see how, like, he brought a special thing in a different way to, like, each band. Like, his versatility was really, like, apparent to me, through the years of, like, seeing him play. But, like, in that in that band, particularly in Hardworking Americans, like, they covered such a wide range of styles, and, like, and the jams were pretty epic as well. But his ability to kind of, like, just do all that uh different music and always bring something special to it, always bring something musical, and something that sort of, like, you know um these little musical lifts, throughout the songs. He just had a really special knack for doing that. I guess it's because he was an artist in his own right too. Like, he had such an appreciation for how songs came together and what it was that made them work, that he was able to sort of, like, paint as a guitar player with that brush a little bit, and always was finding ways inside of them, and never doing anything that, like, got in the way or was distracting or anything. Really
Totally.
cool.
So you recorded Neal's song Traveling After Dark from the 2006 album No Wish to Reminisce. So let's have a quick listen to a clip of that song.
I'm traveling after dark, I'm running down the road, straight into the heart of a place I've never known. I'm looking for a sign, guided by the stars, until I see your light. I'm just traveling after dark. Would we take the part of you, the one you love the most, the one thing that was true, the thing you held so close? Got bridges all burned down, gotta head back to the stars. Until you make it back, we're just traveling after dark. Traveling after dark, guided by the stars. Just dream another dream, and may it take you far. Traveling after dark.
All right, now let's listen to Neal's version.
We all want something real, and we're all hoping to find a closer way to feel. Just one thing to remind, just one way to forgive. 'Cause sometimes you fall too far, just someone to be with when we're traveling after dark. Traveling after dark.
Okay, so a little bit of background about this song and the album. No Wish was Neal's maximalist album that he recorded with Michael Deming, who also recorded Beachwood Sparks' debut album in Connecticut at Studio 45. And he'd made his last several albums pretty quickly. So with this one, he had a chance to spend a lot of time doing overdubs and more layering. He was really seeking a psychedelic, dreamlike kind of sound. And he went with Jeff Hill and Dan Fidel for a few days to add rhythm. And then after that, Neal spent about 2 weeks at the studio, literally camped out on the floor between the amps and drums, just working with Michael Deming, who wrote a couple beautiful string arrangements that ended up on the album that Neal was really excited about and counted as his happiest recording moments. And that's how we have this beautiful, like very elaborate, very different album that's, kind of strayed from what was classified as more like Americana to something really, really dreamy. So I'm wondering, Aaron, why you chose this song to record.
I mean, I think, you said a lot of the reason why in the way that you were just describing the album itself, and to me, this song specifically encapsulates so much of that dreaminess. I think, like I feel like I connected with it in part because it has a very similar kind of aesthetic to what I do in my own music. It was one of those moments where I kind of like felt, a kinship, with another musician just by listening to the record. Sometimes I think that can happen when you're a songwriter. You can hear somebody else's song and almost feel this familial, relation to them, like by what they're saying and the way they've approached it and all that kind of stuff. And that whole album, but specifically that song, just really spoke to me in that way, where I felt like it was something that I could sing and it would feel believable, because at the end of the day, like, that's really what I want as a listener. I want to believe, the singer, and so that particular song, the sentiment of the lyrics, and the sort of combination of this sort of very beautiful melodic, sensibility, but this sweet sadness, this very like, just like tugging at your heartstrings kind of the whole time. I really related to that a lot. And so, it was a combination kind of both what Neal was saying in the song and then how he had kind of approached, as you say, the kind of more lush and kind of dreamlike production on the record and the song specifically.
Very cool. So I also wanted to mention that there's an incredible demo of Traveling After Dark that listeners can hear on the All Directions compilation. It's full of demos and rare cuts, and I encourage everyone to go check it out if you haven't.
It's time you go to him, 'cause he really needs you now. His days are closing in, and you've never let him down. He's running purpose in your heart, but he won't leave you behind when he's traveling after dark. He'll just be traveling after dark. So keep him in your heart. Traveling after dark, guided by the stars. Just dream another dream and may it take you far. Traveling after dark. Traveling after dark.
Did you listen to that one
So
beforehand?
good. I did. Yeah. Loved it.
That's like, I think really epitomizes what you're talking about, that sweet sadness or
Yes.
sad sweetness. That's
Absolutely.
yeah. So how else did you prepare to record this song?
Well, I knew, that I was going to be working with Dave Schools and Jim Scott at Pliers. Both of those, collaborations were definitely like dream collaborations of mine as far as like people like that you would ever want to work with. It's like both of those guys have made so much music that I love through the years. And then what was really beautiful for me when I got there was to see how many old friends from New York, were on the session as well. John Graboff, for example, is a guy that I've known for a long, long time and have always wanted to do something with in the studio. And to get to come together to honor our friend Neal was like so, so special. So I just tried to put myself in the headspace of the song, and the song. One of the things that strikes me about the lyrics of the song is there is that sweet sadness to it, but like it's also written like with an open heart. Like there's a sense of curiosity to it, that feels, ultimately like still kind of hopeful to me,
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot, at least that I, am pulling from, emotionally, like from the lyrics, and I was really just trying to get inside of like, each part of the song and like, and just try to figure out, the best way to channel those emotions, because again, it's like they're not mine, I didn't write the song. Like I connect with what's being said, but ultimately they're the thoughts and feelings of somebody else. So like, I'm trying to like present those in a way that's like believable. So just trying to get inside of those lines and like, find the way to sing them that feels real to me,
Mm-hmm. So along with John Graboff and Dave Schools playing on this song, we also have Jesse Aycock, Alex Coford, Tony Leone, Adam McDougall, and Jim Scott also plays on the song. So how was it working with all of Neal's old friends and bandmates?
I mean, it's so much fun. Tony, I was one of the first musicians I ever saw play when I moved to New York City.
Wow.
He had a band called Ola Bell, and they used to play at this little tiny club called Banjo Jim's, that was on 9th Street and Avenue C. And I went to the show, and they did a cover of this old spiritual song called Riverside, and they kind of reinvented the song. And people probably heard, I'm gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside. But they had totally reinvented the song, and when they came in and started singing, like it was so beautiful. Like I just started crying. Like I was just standing in this tiny bar, like packed in there with a bunch of people, like just crying because it was so pretty. I'll never forget that, So it's cool because in a lot of ways, these guys are kind of like, I'm younger than they are, but like when I got to New York, they were some of the first musicians I saw play and just, idolized them. and thought, man, if I could, I should keep working really hard so I can be, a musician like that someday. So to get to work with them, and at the same time, again, be, doing it in remembrance of our friend Neal, who, he was such a, he built great community. Neal did, he really, was, a part of encouraging so many musicians and having those meaningful connections with other musicians through the years, you know. So it just, I don't know, it the it breaks my heart, in so many ways that Neal isn't here anymore. But um, you know, to get to be with this group of people, you know, to perform his songs, just feels like, the closest thing we can get to heaven. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So, what does the mission of the Neal Casal Music Foundation mean to you personally?
Well, I think, it's a really important, it's a really important thing, because it's something that, we tend to overlook, or not talk about, the mental health of ourselves and each other, and, and the relationship, that musicians have with their mental health, can be, really up and down if they're spending a lot of time on the road. I mean, I know that personally, but also, I've seen, through the years, multiple, friends who do this for a living struggle with that, and so, it's an important thing because it's something that affects all of us, and it's we need to normalize the discussion more, so that we make it okay for people to say, I need help, and to reach out and not feel, isolated. It's traveling on the road as a musician, it's so funny because you're constantly engaging with people, throughout the day, but it's also a very isolating experience at the same time. You're constantly internalizing all of your feelings and emotions, and um, there oftentimes isn't a space to let any of that out. So I think, the Neal Casal Foundation is great because it shines a light on issues like that we really need to be able to normalize and talk about, and change, the, you know the perspective, that we have, that, um, you know if you're dealing with these issues, it's something private, it's something you can't share with your friends, it's something you can't reach out to, managers or tour managers, or, whoever is out there with you. We need to create lifelines so that, people don't feel alone and don't feel isolated, and feel like that, if they need help, they can get it.
Right. So you released an album earlier this year. That's great. And one of the central themes is overcoming mental health challenges and anxiety. So how have you found strength and confidence and overcome these issues and anxiety and things like that?
Well, I've tried really hard to, create a level of consciousness for myself where, I'm aware of what's happening in my body. I'm aware of what's happening with the way that I'm feeling every day. And, when the times come when that stuff gets heavy, like, I, have learned, to, find ways to get the help that I need. I think there are, you know, resources out there that are, you know, available to Musicians Health Alliance and things like that. Certainly now the Neal Casal Music Foundation. But there, you know, there are resources out there for people, you know, to get help if they need it. But again, I think it's, you know, it's about making sure that we're sharing those and normalizing that process. And you know, so I've had, you know, I've found ways to, you know, do therapy sessions and stuff like that while I'm on the road via Zoom and stuff like that if I need to. You know, I've built a support system, you know, within our touring team, you know, that I know, like, you know, I can you know, rely on if I need to put my hand up and say, hey, um, you know, I'm having a tough time or whatever. You know, I know people will be responsive to that, you know. So I think you know, there are intentional, you know, things that, you know, we as artists can do to, you know, foster and create these environments where we can you know, feel safe. But we have to we have to be our own advocates in a lot of ways. You know, we can't, in so many, you know, times as an artist, I feel like it's, you know, it's easy to say, oh, there's so many things for me to focus on, like I can't make that my job and make that my job and make that my job, you know. But you know, it's important when it's something like this, when it's your own mental health and well-being, you know, you should never be afraid to be, you know, as much of an advocate for yourself about that, you know, as you need to be, because at the end of the day, you've got to, you know, your heart and mind have to be right, you know, when you're out there, because the road is not a, it's not a particularly forgiving place a lot of times, you know. So you know, we can build these support systems for ourselves, but we have to advocate for ourselves along the way to get it done.
That's really great advice. So thank you for sharing that. And to wrap things up, I wanted to ask a specific question about one of these hardworking American sessions. Speaking of kind of meeting your heroes, I know that Guy Clark actually showed up at one of these sessions. You were there for that, right?
I sure was, yeah.
What was that like? Because I imagine that he's kind of a hero to everyone involved.
Oh my God, totally. I mean, it was, I did get to watch him, and the Hardworking Americans were recording a song of Guy's that day, and I did get to watch Neal and Guy like sit in the control room together and like work out like what they were going to play on guitar for the song, which was amazing. I mean, Guy Clark, it's like, you know, there, you know, he's, you know, I mean, his shadow weighs 2 tons, man. You know what I mean? Like the guy, like you can feel that he's in the building. You know what I mean? You don't even need to be in like the same room. I do remember they had rented some extraordinarily fancy Martin acoustic guitar for Guy to play on the session, you know, from like the 1300s or, you know, some amazing old guitar that was probably worth a gazillion dollars. Um and Neal was playing it at one point and he was like, man, check out this guitar, man, like this guitar is like amazing. And he handed it to me, and I don't think I ever even got it. I just immediately dropped it. Immediately. And him and Todd Snyder were sitting there, and like they both just started laughing so hard at me. I caught it right before it hit the ground, thank goodness, but I was so clumsy. I was just like, it's so funny, man, because I was just a nervous, like, you know, like 26-year-old kid, you know, that like was suddenly in this room with like a million of my heroes. And I remember Neal was really cool, and sort of maybe even, I don't know, he's maybe sensed that about me, and he was like, hey man, like, is it cool, like can we like go into the control room for a minute, I'd love to take your picture or whatever, you know. And he kind of sat me down on the couch and handed me a guitar, and and just talked to me about music for a few minutes and like took my picture. And actually, I felt like way better after that. So I don't know, man. He was just an intuitive. Maybe he was empathically feeling that or something. But that was It was an amazing moment.
Yeah, that story is just keeps giving. All right, Aaron. Well, thank you so much for sharing these stories and memories, and take care while you're out there on the road.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Okay, talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
This podcast is brought to you by Backline, the music industry's mental health and wellness resource hub. Launched in 2019, Backline gives artists, crews, and their families quick and easy access to mental health and wellness resources. Backline provides individuals with case management and offers virtual support groups as well as yoga, meditation, and breath work. To donate, learn more, or get in touch for personalized care, visit backline.care. That's BACKLINE.CARE.
Thanks for listening to Highway Butterfly, the stories of Neal Casal. Tune in next week to hear more from the artists who made this tribute album a reality. Highway Butterfly, the songs of Neal Casal is out on November 12th. All album net proceeds go to the Neal Casal Music Foundation. You can pre-order the album and learn more at nealcasalmusicfoundation.org.